The crazy dating world we live in nowadays has made it extremely complicated for both men and women to know when someone else is attracted to them. In fact, relationships often run their course without any real success due to signs not being read correctly. But now we'll share some of the strongest signs of attraction you could ever imagine. You see, women are somewhat unique in the sense that they tend to prefer being somewhat passive-aggressive. Unfortunately, men are not adept at dealing with passive-aggressive women, and this can confuse both parties, which ultimately allows relationships to run their course without anything happening. Before we get into the 10 strongest signs, we should consider looking at why women are naturally more passive-aggressive. Why are women passive-aggressive? Before addressing the most important signs, you need to also consider the fact that the passive-aggressive streak in the modern woman has increased tenfold over the last few decades and with the advent of social media. Whilst this streak has always been somewhat prevalent in women, each person still had to fight for what they wanted back in the days before social media basically connected the world completely. To best understand this in the modern era, we should consider the fact that everyone now has contact with everyone due to social media. Instead of forcing women to fight for what they want, they can simply just check their inboxes and easily find that numerous men are seeking some attention. What this signals to a woman is that she's extremely high in demand, and being so high in demand means that she can play games with her current man. Aside from being an absolutely stunningly strong man mentally, there is absolutely nothing men can do other than simply adapt by making sure when women show them these signs, they can immediately react to them to ensure that everything is done correctly, and they don't miss this opportunity. Now, many of you might be wondering if reacting this way makes a man weak, but in fact, it doesn't. You might have noticed that we also mention men should always ensure they have adequate options for whenever one fizzles out, but you cannot adopt the same nonchalant style and personality that women have, or nothing will happen. With this said, it's even more important that you consider taking these signs rather seriously, and you'll notice just how much more successful your relationships tend to be. So, here are 10 powerful signs that show she's interested. Number 1. You become the center of her attention. Women are extremely nonchalant to an extent, and this is why most relationships fizzle out significantly. However, if you notice for a brief moment in time that you are the center of her universe, it's one of the most powerful signs of attraction you can ever hope for. You see, women will only prioritize things they can gain an advantage from, and when she's chosen you as the main person for her attention, you have become her cornerstone. And this is when you want to keep fueling the flame, as it will ensure that something can naturally build from the situation. The way you know you're the center of her attention will be a combination of some other signs you'll see in this video. However, you must have in the back of your mind that you should also be willing to put in some of the work and effort if you're to ensure that something actually comes from this. The major problem with most men is that they notice that the woman is putting in tons of effort and they simply believe they've won her over. However, she's doing so to see how much effort you're willing to put in, which should be matched or increased for her to finally realize you're the right guy. However, somewhat accomplished men can allow their achievements to speak for themselves, and this will automatically validate them, which is why women tend to love celebrities and even famous influencers. Number 2. She always responds to messages and calls. Nowadays, the world has chosen social communication via texting and calling to stay in touch with one another. However, much like social media, women are constantly bombarded by numerous guys texting them, and this is easy to see when you meet someone from a dating app. Yes, you initially have some great conversations, but by the second day, this is completely fizzled out as she has hundreds of other men seeking her attention. She might respond to your messages once every couple days, and you might have noticed that this is when relationships will actually fizzle out completely. If a woman likes you completely, she's more likely to respond to your text messages and calls. In fact, women will even make some time to respond to these things, which is completely unheard of in the modern world. However, she still wants what she likes, and for the time being, you have become this beacon of desire that she's constantly seeking. If you notice her frequently responding to text messages, and in some cases, she might even choose to initiate the conversation as well, you have won her over. Ideally, you want to keep the momentum going, but as a man, you need to find a way to get her from the texting application onto a date. What you're trying to do is build a physical and emotional connection with the woman, which naturally tends to change the dynamic of almost everything, and you'll see that now this will increase her responsiveness even more to some extent, which ensures that the communication continues to flow, and the relationship can bloom into something of real value. Number 3. She sends you pics and photos throughout the day. It's easy to think that whenever a woman sends you pics and images, we are implying somewhat rowdy images, but this is not always the case. You see, she doesn't always need to send you something to turn you on to show you that she's thinking of you and has a vested interest in you. In fact, women will be more likely to send you random pics of things they see during the day, and this can be her way of trying to ensure that the two of you have some solid communication going on between you. Another way women can show this is actually by sending you funny pictures or memes. But what you need to realize is that she's actively trying to keep the conversation going, and this is done by trying to elicit some kind of response. Ideally, you want to capitalize on this and continue entertaining the conversation. Now, many influencers will tell you just how bad it is for a man to continually talk to a woman on social media, but this is certainly not the case, and the more she talks to you, the more she's expecting a response. But don't overdo it, and only respond when you can. Number 4. She talks in a feminine tone. The relationship dynamic between men and women heavily hinges on the balance between masculinity and femininity. You'll notice that women talk in a more feminine tone when it comes to men they desire. The reason for this is the little bit of submission and feminine personality they're trying to correctly emulate. One of the most powerful signs of attraction is the fact that women will become slightly more feminine when they like a man. And this is a way of showing their own submission and the fact that they actually trust him to take the lead in the relationship. The best way to sum this up is to imagine her being a woman in public, but when she's around you, she's this sweet girl you just want to protect and care for. This is a woman now entering her feminine state, which is perhaps one of the most powerful signs she could ever show you. Due to the weak quality of the modern man, many women have to become far more masculine, and they eventually embody this completely, which makes it tough for men to break through some of these incredible barriers that masculinity often forces a woman to start creating around herself. Number 5. She gives you actual compliments. One of the biggest issues nowadays is that women expect a man to court them and give them tons of compliments, but they are unwilling to return the favor and give the same compliments in return. In fact, you can let us know in the comment section what percentage of women you talk to actually give you compliments that stretch beneath the surface. What you find is that this number is incredibly low, and the reason for it is that women rarely, if ever, find a guy to be extremely attractive. With all the men out there influencing the world, you are competing with others on a very different level. If you meet a girl and she freely gives you compliments, it's one of the most powerful signs of attraction, and also somewhat undeniable. This means that she doesn't know anyone who can down that you do, or it could even mean that she definitely likes what she sees. Ideally, you want to comfortably run with these compliments, as they could easily help you to become a better person and improve virtually every aspect of yourself and your natural personality. You should return the favor if possible, and also focus on complimenting her. Having this happen is one of the best ways to see she likes you. Number 6. She always looks good when you see her. Let's face it, women are also human, and this is what is often complicated when it comes to thinking that someone is the most attractive person. You see, everyone takes great care when it comes to appearance if they're going out when you have a date scheduled, but for the most part, you don't really care what people think of you. The same is true for women, and when you go on the first couple dates, she'll look her very best. But the way to see if she's fully attracted to you is to see what she does when you're going out for a mundane activity. If she's still putting in a ton of effort to ensure that she looks her very best, you've naturally won her over, and you can bank on the fact that she's definitely not doing this for anyone else. Women will always want to match the effort of their partner if they desire him. In layman's terms, she will always look great, and you will eventually realize that she's putting in all this effort to ensure that you always see her at her very best level. Women don't put in so much effort for men if they have hundreds of them in their DMs, but they will do this in the moment they meet the right guy that they actually want. Number 7. She seems somewhat nervous. You've probably experienced the feeling of butterflies we all have to face at some point or another. You see, dating is not that easy, and regardless of how much confidence you have or not, you'll eventually feel this little bit of discomfort, which tends to manifest itself in what we call butterflies. For women, this can be experienced to a much higher degree, which often makes them appear nervous and agitated on certain dates. If a woman is nervous on some of your dates, it's not something you've done wrong, but rather something you've done right. And this is what is truly attractive. The nervousness often goes both sides, and when you feel this from a woman, she's slightly stressed about whether or not you're feeling the same way that she's feeling. You have to understand that every person on the planet fears rejection, regardless of their mental capacity and strength. Once you pick up on this slightly nervous behavior, you have won her over, and it is a very powerful sign that she's attracted to you. You should have the confidence to make a move when this happens. Number 8. She occupies space around you. If you venture out with friends, you can stop for a while and simply observe the natural behavior of those around you. You see, it's rather easy to notice that people of the same group will continue to flock together. The reason for this is that we are drawn to those we like and feel comfortable with. Ultimately, the moment you are attracted to someone, you automatically develop some level of trust in them. And it is this additional level of trust you build in one another that will progress the relationship in a different direction. However, she will also want to be close to you, and this means that she's always trying to occupy some of the space that you have around you. In fact, you become the person who she trusts and feels safe around, which doesn't happen that often. You see, a woman who likes you is more than likely to sit next to you or just be within or close to the personal bubble you've already constructed around you. Once you notice this as one of the signs, you can capitalize on this by allowing her to be close to you whenever she wants to be. Number 9. Your conversations are the most important. Another important thing many men miss is the fact that conversations are important, but when in a group setting, people have this generalized conception that the alpha will always be the one who continues to dominate the conversation, and everyone will simply follow their lead. Unfortunately, this is not the case when it comes to women, and they will naturally gravitate toward the person they find the most attractive and feel the most comfortable being around. One way to see this is by observing her behavior during these conversations, which should easily show that she's willing to ignore everyone else to listen to you speak. If you're a funny guy who likes telling jokes, you'll also see her laughing at all your jokes and ensuring that everyone sees just how funny you are. Number 10. She praises you in front of others. The most important sign is what happens when you're not around. You see, women rarely care about others, and they will never tell people how great someone is of their own accord or unless they've been directly asked about them. However, a woman who likes you is far more willing to have these conversations, and she'll naturally want to brag about you and your accomplishments. This can happen behind your back, or when the two of you are in the same general conversation. As complicated as people want to make the female gene to be, it's actually quite simple once you realize which signs are the most important. But this is when you also need to start taking the lead and make her like you. Check out this next video to make sure you know how to get any girl you like.